Today's scripture reading will be taken from Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth.
We're making progress toward building that picture-perfect family. If you can get the right snapshot and hang it up on the wall, it'll be good for the next 20 years. And everybody will look back and remember. And through those 2 decades, people will observe and say, wow, man, if only our family could be that way. We have the ideal moms. We've gone through that. So now, parents, would you agree that we need the perfect children? Let's get those. The kind that we can hang up on the wall when we take the portrait, and we're going to be so proud of them. And we're going to do with our kids like what we did with our moms. We're going to look at the original family of our faith and take some time to consider the children of Abraham and Sarah, Rebekah and Isaac, Jacob and Leah, also Jacob and Rachel, as we build this picture-perfect family. You remember the fuzzy guy, Esau? Let's start with him. Let's look at Esau. Parents, wouldn't you love to have a biblical child? You could get one if you want. You could have one just like Esau. So let's consider from the book of Genesis what kind of a child Esau was. And I realize we're reading here when Esau was 40 years old. Doesn't change the fact that he was a child of some of the original parents of faith. But in Genesis 26, verses 34 and 35, when Esau was 40 years old, he took as wives, notice, plural. Where did he learn that? He's seen that, doesn't seem from dad and mom, Isaac and Rebekah, but from grandpa. He's gotten that from Abraham. He had Sarah and also, of course, Hagar at the same time. When Esau was 40 years old, he did just like grandpa did. He took his wives, plural, Judith, the daughter of Beri, the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of the second richest man in the world. Well, maybe not, but Elon, the Hittite, and they were a grief of mine to Isaac and Rebekah. Go figure. You have this picture-perfect, religious, moral family, the family of our faith, and then they start intermarrying with the Canaanites. The Hittites are one of the 7 peoples of the region of Canaan. And you recall what their character was? Now, they weren't atheists. They were polytheists. They worshiped many gods, including the system of the Baals. There's a lot of immorality in that place. In fact, God is going to end up destroying them, or at least issue the proclamation of their destruction because of their wickedness. So you have this really religious, moral people combining with this kind of religious, really more irreligious, and immoral people, and what do you know? It just doesn't work out the way everybody thought it would. I had a friend in high school. He was a year older than me. Came from a family of faith, just a really good, godly family, very moral. And he found him a sweet little gal in our hometown, Mountain Grove. 2 years younger than he. They're both friends of mine. But she came from a very different background. Her family wasn't really connected to religion at all. I think technically they would say they believed in God, but never had any association with church and religious activities and any of that kind of stuff. And a very immoral family, I'll also say. And I can tell you from what I heard from mom of the boy that she was quite stressed when for years her son suddenly didn't take any interest in God and church anymore and was involved with drugs and actually lived with this girl for a number of years, and it just broke her heart. The strangest thing happened. They broke up for a time. Of course, they weren't living together any longer. And he came back to God, the church, and he got married. He has kids. And actually, I run into him every now and then at sporting events. His kids are in, I think, some of the Christian schools as well. So that's kind of neat to do that. But I say that to say this. When you combine the religious with the irreligious and the moral with the immoral, there are some compromises that tend to take place. And when kids do that, it puts a real strain on mom and dad. Esau, the biblical child, does that very thing in the family of faith. And it's just more than Isaac and Rebekah can bear. What about the sibling interaction of this child, Esau? We talked just a little bit about that the last time we had a study on this. Genesis 27, verse 41, so Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. And that goes back to, the hairy guy and who smells like the wilderness. And he has the goat skins or animal skins that are put on him that are hairy on his arms. And so he comes before his father at his mother's request and says, go in and say, even though you're Jacob, go in and say, I'm Esau. What if he feels me? Here, put this on you, and you'll be really hairy. And so he won't know the difference. And he hugs him, and he smells him. Oh, yeah, that's my boy. That's Esau. Smells like the wilderness. And he gives the blessing to the wrong child because he can't see well. His brother takes advantage of dad and his brother. The result of this is Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. They were both chasing after the things so much. They didn't even care about their relationship with one another. And actually Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. Do you ever hear things like that? For those who come with a family of siblings, I hate you. I'll kill you. But, you really don't mean it. He meant it. He hated his guts. And he had actual plans to do his brother in. What is it about kids and growing up? My kids, all it takes is to be in 100-foot radius of each other. They're screaming at each other. Fisticuffs are flying. The real weakness of my family is something about a vehicle. I don't know if it's the noise inside of it. I don't know if it's the closeness. It used to be, we were in a good spot because we only had 6 in our family, and we had a 7-seater vehicle. And in the middle row, the captain chairs. And in the back row, we would just keep a space. And they still fought all the time. Now we have 7 in our 7-seater. And it's 3 times worse than it's ever been. As soon as they get in that vehicle, it's the fisticuffs, it's the words, and not necessarily in that order. You never know how it's going to come. I get so tired of it. You expect that in messed up families like mine and yours, but not in the family of faith where you'd extend cross words and actually consider harming one another. Chapter 27 of Genesis, verse 46, and Rebekah said to her husband, Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. And that's just another name for the Canaanites and the Hittites, because Esau has married in. And if you're wondering why she's talking about that, if we're talking about the brothers' problems, I think she might sense some of the animosity within our family, even with the siblings, is because of these women, these godless women. She says, if Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth, like these who are the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me? Parents, Christian parents, you ever thrown your hands up and say, I can't do this anymore. I don't know the next step to take. This is what's happened with my kids. I don't know where my husband or my wife and I went wrong, but here's what we have. How did we get here? You ever felt that way about your children? And said, oh man, if only we were a family like what you find in the Bible. Say like, the family of our faith. And then you look back at the family of our faith and you realize, looks just like our families. What's wrong with us all? Why are we so messed up? Well, I'm going to suggest to you that you can't judge a Christian family by a single snapshot that you would take of them just at any given point in time. It's by the full body of work. And here's what I'd like to do. I desire to fast forward 20 years later. I know it's only like 6 chapters in Scripture, but we're going 2 decades down the road. These estranged brothers have not spoken to one another. The last time they were together, they hated each other, and one quite literally was planning on, not just threatening, but planning on killing the other. Jacob doesn't know how this reunion is going to go, but he's ready to see his brother anyway. In chapter 33, verse 4, we're a little surprised to find that the guy who hated and wanted to murder his brother ran to meet his brother and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him. And they wept together. Before, they were apart because they kept fighting over things. And this time, Jacob sends all these things ahead of him. And when he finally gets to his brother Esau, he says, "My brother, what do you mean by all these waves of animals coming?" He said, "Those are a present to you. I want to give you these things." He says, I don't need your things. I have plenty myself. You keep the things for yourself. He says, "No, I demand, please take this present from my hand, because when I saw your face, it was like seeing the face of God, and you received me." So you could look back at this family and in any snapshot say, you guys are messed up. You're not the picture-perfect family. Yet in the end, does this look like Isaac and Rebekah might have done some good with their boys? They never forgot their raising, did they? But when we're younger, we fight over silly things, and we think those kinds of things really matter. Everybody does it, Christian and non-Christian families alike. My sister, she was closest. So I have 3 siblings. There are 4 of us in the family. I'm the final of those. And my sister was the closest to me in age. We were 4 years apart. We fought like cats and dogs all those growing up years. I want to tell you about a thing my sister had. It was so cool. It was this necklace. Now, it wasn't a girly-looking chain like this one. Heath had at least had the thickness of a unisex silver chain, just so everyone knows, okay? And she had this Nike necklace, and I tried to find one just like it. I couldn't. This is the closest thing I can use to resemble it. And there was this pendant on it that was made of a quarter, an actual U.S. quarter. And it didn't have the swoosh just embedded in it. It had the swoosh cut out of it. Coolest thing you've ever seen. Unisex necklace with a Nike quarter as your pendant. Now, you have to understand, we were a family of 6, and we didn't have just a lot growing up. And the fact that my sister had Nike anything was a big deal. And this is a Nike necklace. This is an extra, an accessory. And for some reason, she let me I was like in 5th grade, take this necklace and wear it to school for like 2 days. I was big man on the block. I didn't have Nike shoes, but I had a Nike necklace, and that was pretty neat. Well, my sister and I, we got into it on a Wednesday night. I recall that. It was right before church, as we often did. And she was stronger than I was at that time. I was a little tiny 5th grader. And of course, she laid hands on me like normal. And there's nothing I can do about it, except I realized I got her Nike necklace on. And so I took the necklace and I pulled it tight. I said, "Get your hands off me. I'll break it." She said, "Let go of my necklace." "Get your hands off me. I'll break it. I'll kill you." It's the typical conversation of a Christian preacher's family right before church. And she wouldn't remove her hands, so I broke that chain. She took her hands off me. She took a step back, like a good baseball player would. She got a full rotation, and it's still slow motion as it replays in my head. And she slapped me across my face and got my ear at the top. I'm sure I'm being a little dramatic, but it seemed like it was for hours I couldn't hear. I never thought our relationship would be the same after that day. If you know my sister and me now, we're as tight can be. And we laugh over the episode of the Nike necklace and the slap. Wasn't very funny at the time. If someone would have taken a picture of that right before and maybe a Polaroid, back in those days, and showed everyone at church, "What? Larry, Cheryl, What are you doing with your children? But if they would see us in our relationship now, someone might even say that's the perfect family as far as a relationship between a brother and a sister. If it's perfect at all, I assure you it's not because of a picture that was snapped in time, but because of love and forgiveness that exists within the family. But Esau, for many years, not the kind of guy you want. Children, you don't want to be like him, right? Like he was with his brother and his mom and his dad making poor life choices. Let's look on the female side of things. Let's consider the life of one of Jacob's children. We know the 12 sons very well. We don't hear as much about his daughter, Dinah. Let's see what she had going on as she was growing up. Genesis 34, verses 2 through 4. There's a guy named Shechem, the Hivite. They're kind of like the Hittites. They're one of those peoples you don't want to tangle with them. But Shechem the Hivite, he's different. Always is, isn't he, parents? He's different. You don't know Shechem. He's prince of the country. And he sees this beautiful young lady named Dinah of Jacob's children, and he takes her, he lies with her, and he violated her. Yet his soul was strongly attracted to Dinah. He still loved the woman, and he spoke kindly to him. Such a sweet guy, isn't he? Verse 4, so Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, get me this young woman as wife. He doesn't sound like the entitled, bratty kind at all, does he? He's used to getting everything he wants as a member of the royal family, and he's certain, I need this woman in my life. Now, if you're in Jacob, and we're going to find out the mom here it's not Rachel, but it's Leah. If you're in the shoes of these parents, what would you think? Here you've raised this beautiful young girl to be a servant of the Lord, and you can't wait to give her away on her wedding day, pure to a fellow servant of God. And now she's gotten tangled up with this nasty, godless boy, and she's no longer pure for marriage. And it could be, based on the wording, it almost sounds like that this might not have been her choice. So, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But that's not the way we drew it up, right? That's not the picture-perfect setting for her wedding day. And this man, of all people, the brothers say, hey, Dad, we got this. Let us take care of this situation. Verse 13, the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, and they spoke deceitfully because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. They said to him, we cannot give our sister to one who's uncircumcised, people like you, for that would be a reproach to us. But we will consent if you will become as we are. If every male among you becomes circumcised, then we will give our daughters, not just Dinah, but more, to you. And we will take your daughters to us. We can have this partnership together. But if not, we will take our daughter and be gone. Well, they say, okay, that sounds pretty good to us. And these guys who are young, middle-aged, and older, the whole town agrees to become circumcised, the males. This is a medical procedure. It's technically a surgery. And if you've had surgery, you know that days later you don't feel great. You're sore from that surgery. And often it's the third day that's the worst of those. Sometimes it's day 2, many times it's day 3, sometimes 4. I'd say most typically probably day 3. Well, they wait until the third day when they're in severe pain from their surgeries. And 2 of Dinah's brothers, Simeon and Levi, that's the second and third born of the family of 12, each takes his sword, comes boldly upon the city, and kills all the males. They kill Hamor and Shechem, his son. They take Dinah from Shechem's house, and the sons of Jacob plundered the city because their sister had been defiled. They took all their wealth, all their little ones and their wives as slaves. They take all that's in their houses. Then Jacob said to his boys, Simeon and Levi, you have troubled me by making me obnoxious, you may have in your version, making me a stench to the inhabitants of the land. They will gather themselves together against me and kill me. But they said, Dad, what were we supposed to do? They violated our sister. Should we let our sister be treated like this? You think about the activities in which these sons, two sons of Jacob, have engaged. Keep in mind, really an upstanding family, a family of faith. They've engaged in deceit. They've told lies. They've committed theft, stealing all the property of this people. And they've murdered all of these people in cold blood. Now, you can make a case with Shechem and what he deserves. I get that. But not everyone in the whole town. Lies, theft, murder from two brothers. That sound like any brothers that you know? If I didn't give you any other information than that, you might be thinking Frank and Jesse. You would expect that from a bunch of robbers and a gang of evil men, but not from a family of faith. You may already know this, but did you know that Frank and Jesse, the Jameses, that those brothers actually had a minister for a father? Might not think that, huh? Useless trivia right there. I don't know. Maybe it's these families that are worse. The family of faith. It's so bad. But that's the boys. Let's get away from, we're talking about Dinah. So let's get back to Dinah. Poor Dinah in all of this. She's taken, she's violated. It sounds like maybe she doesn't have any choice in the matter, and that could be the case. But I will suggest this, based on the lead into this passage, I think she makes a very terrible decision, best case scenario, that put her in this dangerous spot. Chapter 34, verse 1. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. Hebrew's kind of tricky because it can be intended to interpret something literally, but a lot of times it's quite flowery and requires the imagination to understand what exactly is being stated. To see can be just to look upon, but the Hebrew word for see can also mean to look upon approvingly and to engage in some kind of activity. Think Ham and Noah, going back to Genesis chapter 9. We don't know 100% for sure if this was totally innocent on her part. Maybe she's just kind of interested. Hey, I know how my family does things. I'm curious. How does everybody else around here do things? I want to go see what the girls of this place do, what they get involved in. Or it might be she goes out with a mindset, hey, whatever these girls are doing, I want to be involved also. And that may be what's intended by that. One thing's for sure, after this day of fun with the girls that she goes out for, the daughters of the land, her life will never be the same again. How many tragic reports have we heard of good young people who come from solid Christian families who one day say, you know what, I know what my family does, I know what my church does, I just want to go out and see what everybody else does. Maybe totally innocent and just curiosity. And then we know later on that the lives of those young people will never be the same from that day moving forward. In the worst of cases, how many instances have we heard their lives ended that day? They went with the wrong people. They went with the wrong place, whether they were innocent intentions or not. So our incredible young people, don't think that it's impossible for you to become that next sad report. I'm sure Dinah never would have thought that this story would be told of her moving forward. And countless youth who thought that their lives would continue. But it didn't, because they went to the wrong place at the wrong time. Life's all about making good decisions. You're not going to make perfect decisions your whole life, but be consistent in the good decisions that you do make. So if it doesn't seem like Esau is the kind of child we want to be, maybe not Dinah either. In the very least, she made one poor decision, if not multiple ones. How about the squeaky clean kid? Oh, the clean-cut, good-looking guy always does everything right. Joseph, surely we'd want to be like him, wouldn't we? Well, Joseph gets preferential treatment from Dad. And I think he's probably learned this. Remember Jacob, Israel? Going back to Isaac and Rebekah. Isaac picks his favorite of the twins, Esau. Rebekah chooses hers, Jacob, and he continues this same treatment that he received from Mama with one preferred child of his, Joseph. Probably Benjamin too, it would sound like, but especially Joseph. Even though he's number 11 in the sequence, he's the firstborn of the true wife that he loves, Rachel. And, all the other kids got these old, nasty, hand-me-down coats. And then it's time for Joseph to get his coat. And Dad gets one that's the colors of the rainbow. It has a different meaning back then, just so we know. But it's so bright and beautiful and probably very expensive. His brothers look at him in that coat, and every time they see it, they think, why doesn't Dad love me and treat me the way he does that child? Well, to make matters worse, verses 5 through 8, Genesis 37, Joseph has a dream. And of course, he divulges that information to his brothers, and they hated him even more. He says, hey, everybody gather around. You have to hear this cool dream I had last night. We were all out in the field together, just like we have been the last 17 years. And we were cutting the hay. It's hay season. We were binding the bales, and each of us has this bale of hay. And all your bales of hay came around my bale, and they fell down to the ground before it. And his brothers said to him, what, you think you're going to reign over us, over my dead body? So they hated him even more for his dreams and his words. You think he might have learned the first time, but it appears he didn't. Verses 9 through 11, he dreamed another dream. And he gladly told that to his brothers. Hey guys, you're not going to believe this. Out under the night sky, like sometimes we find ourselves, I saw the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars coming and bowing down to me. This time even Dad rebukes him, and he says, you think your mom and I with your brothers are going to come and bow down to the earth before you? His brothers envied him, but his father, he kept the matter in mind. Everybody has their story to tell about siblings. With Joseph, this is what leads to when he comes to check on his brothers. And in Dothan, he finds them, and seeing him coming from afar, his brothers start to make plans. And they're serious when they say they hate this kid. They make plans to personally kill him. We're not told how, but I'm sure they have a few different methods in their minds. Maybe some torture being involved. Hey, let's kill this kid and get rid of him. We'll throw his dead body in a pit and nobody will ever even know about it. And the oldest, Reuben, says, guys, that's crazy. We don't want to do this to our brother. The oldest one with some sense. And he says, hey, let's just put him down in this pit, but alive. Let's leave him there. He has in mind, I'll go back and get him when everyone's gone. I'll take him back home safely to Dad. And apparently while he's away, Judah, the righteous brother, quote unquote, Judah, the fourthborn, has the brilliant plan. He says, no. Let's get him out of the pit. If we kill him, we don't get anything out. Let's sell him. Sell him as a slave. He'll go to a foreign land. We'll never see him again, and we'll make some money off of it. And they agree. And can you imagine when he's bound, being carried off by this caravan, 17-year-old boy, into a foreign country? Who knows what's going to happen to him there? You imagine the cries and screams that must have been coming from their brother. Unless they have him gagged, and maybe they don't have to hear them any longer. Reuben goes back to the pit, and he's not there. And he says, what am I going to do? So they contrive this plan to tell this lie to their father about how he's killed by a wild animal. What a terrible story. Man, I wish I had a biblical family, though, don't you? Everyone has a story somewhere about Joseph, especially if you're younger. I told you this one before, so I'll keep it brief. But for those who haven't heard, I think I was about 10 years old, and my mom and dad had gone, I think they had visited someone from church. And my brother was left in charge, and I'll just cut to the chase. By the time it was all said and done, you know what a wedgie is. By the time it was all said and done, my older brother had given me an atomic wedgie. That's the gift of all gifts. And that's when your undergarments are pulled so snug that they come off of your body, torn off of your body. And my siblings, this is all my brother, he's a mastermind. He's a strong kid too. 7 years older, 6, 7 years older, for those who are wondering. But he then hogtied me with the strap, the elastic from my underwear band. And I may have said some things that weren't very nice. And my sister held open the door. It was raining outside. And my brother held my head under the drip that was coming off of the roof. So essentially, I went through war torture. Waterboarded is what happened with me. That's the story being told from the standpoint of the youngest, okay? So you take that for what you will. Oh, I hated them. I wanted to kill them. Just like Joseph, though, I had that thought a time or two, just wait till mom and dad come home. I knew they weren't going to kill me or sell me into slavery, so I would still get to tell my story. Joseph doesn't get that opportunity. This is crazy. How could anything come to this, especially in a biblical family, the family of our faith? Leading into all of this, verse 2 of Genesis 37, we're told, well, this is the history behind this. Joseph, being 17 years old, ... Joseph really fed into this. As a young man and as one of the youngest in the family, the brothers saw him as the annoying little punk that is so spoiled and always gets his way. I've told my side of the story, and I'll tell you my siblings' side. As they would begin that story to you today, I think they would say something along the lines of, Derek, being 10 years old, so annoying. He always told on us. He was spoiled. He got everything he wanted. I may or may not have provoked them a little bit before that led to all the things that took place with me. When you're young and your siblings, you say dumb things, you do dumb things, and in response, you say and you do a lot of dumb things as well. If you were to take a snapshot of this family and show it all around the world, ask everyone, you want to be like this family? No one would sign up for that one. But I want to fast forward and show you kind of the final picture here of this family. Genesis 45, verse 4, Joseph said to his brothers, now they don't know he's alive. They come to Egypt, and think of the switch and the irony. You have the brother Joseph crying and begging for help to save his life as he's carried away by the Ishmaelites. And now you have the brothers coming before him. They don't know it's Joseph, essentially begging for their life and food in a great famine so that they can survive. This is Joseph's chance to get even. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But do not be grieved or angry with yourselves, for God sent me before you to preserve life. 2 years the famine has been in the land. There's still 5 years. But God sent me before you to save your lives so that it was not you who sent me here, but God. Hurry, go to my father and say to him, come down, dwell in the land of Goshen. You shall be near to me, you and your children. That's Joseph's brothers and sisters. Your children's children, your flocks, herds, all that you have, I will provide for you. Then he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And after that, his brothers talked with him. Now, looking back, do you think Jacob/Israel was such a failure of a parent? You see, it's not about a single snapshot that's taken. It's about the end result. And in the end, you find what seems like, in a lot of ways, this perfect family. Not because they've been picture perfect at all through the years, but because they found perfection through love and forgiveness. And here's where we bring things together, and our mission as individuals as well as families. Colossians 3, verse 12, therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, humility, kindness, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another and forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection. It's like a musical crescendo of what it takes to be this complete child of God. And he's building up, and eventually he gets to love, number one. And if you look at it that way, did you notice what's number 2 on the list to perfection? Verse 13, forgiveness. Forgiveness and love. Last summer, our family got to visit and stay at a place I've wanted to for a number of years now. It's not very far from home. It's northwestern Arkansas, Jasper. I know many of you have passed through it, and probably a number of you have stayed there. This is our family. I know the water looks pretty gross underneath it. It had rained quite a bit, so that's why it's decently muddy. And I'm thankful it did, though, after a dry spell, because we got to see these waterfalls of Arkansas we wouldn't have been able to enjoy otherwise. Here's a gorgeous one where three cascading falls are coming over at once from a couple of different streams. One's really spring-fed. I'm very proud of my children. They're strong. They held up an Arkansas cliff. They're responsible for that for a whole day. I'm sure Reagan will thank me for the picture later. It looks like a lot more water than what it really is. The one with the three, there we are standing on top of it. There's not much water there. But we're thankful for that rain so we could see that beautiful imagery of God's creation. Here's why I share this with you. I know it's just our family up here, but it was more than us. Strangely, I didn't. Maybe Vanessa did, but I didn't get any pictures. One of my sisters and my brother and their families, they were also there with us. We stayed for 2 nights in a cabin in the woods together with our kids. And I don't think we had stayed together like that, all of us. Unfortunately, we didn't have the oldest of my siblings with us. But I don't think we've all done that probably since we all lived under Mom and Dad's roof together. We had the best time. The memories and the laughs that were shared. And if you were to look at that family in that 2-day span, you probably would say, wow, that's a perfect family. Wish I had a family like that. But you know enough about me now to know that we were never the picture-perfect family growing up. I do feel like in ways, the sibling relations, there's some perfection. But it's not because of the pictures. It's because of the perfection that's been found through love and forgiveness. Kids, there's a responsibility on your end. Ephesians 6, 1-3. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you, and you may live long on the earth. And what the apostle through inspiration is saying is, guys, the earlier you figure this out, the better your life is going to be. Your mom and dad are not against you. They're for you. And if you'll listen to them and follow their godly advice, you will see your life do incredible things even early on. And it increases your likelihood of having a long, healthy, happy life if you'll just listen to them and do what they say. When Vanessa and I were dating, there was a tragedy that took place. And the background to this, there was a young girl, I think she was 14 at the time, right around there anyway. And she lived less than a mile from where Vanessa grew up in her house. They had a farm, a family, and seems like a good young person with a solid Christian mom and dad. Mom and dad had some silly rules, like every mom and dad does. And one of these is when we're away, you don't take the four-wheeler out on the farm. Well, mom and dad weren't there, so she didn't listen to that rule. And she went out on the farm and enjoyed some time out there. Well, mom and dad later came home that day, and their daughter wasn't in the house. I thought, well, they went out to the barn, and the four-wheeler wasn't there either, and they thought, that's not good. They went out on the farm, and as parents, they had to find a site that no parent should ever have to find. And that's one of those instances where the child didn't come home. 14 years old, good young person, solid Christian upbringing, mom and dad's silly rules. Mom and dad had even that silly rule for a reason. They wanted to keep their child with them and to give her the best chance to succeed in life. The heavenly parent is just like our earthly parents. He has some things that he expects of us. Sometimes they seem like they're silly rules, and they don't matter. Jesus, he says in Mark chapter 16, verse 16, he who believes in me and is baptized will be saved. And a lot of times that's looked at as, well, that's silly. I don't think that I really have to follow that. He's telling us what we need to know to have life and to have it more abundantly, that it may be well with you and you may live long, not for 70 or 80 years, but he wants you to live forever. Now, we don't always have to understand the ramifications of everything that he tells us, but it's important that we trust our Heavenly Parent and we follow what he says, having in mind he has at heart my best interests. I could spend some time describing to you why he tells you what he does to have long life. We've been through those studies before, so I won't. But I hope you at least trust him when he says, I'm looking out for your own good. You want to have long life, like really long life, life that never ends. Believe in me and be baptized, and I will eternally save you from your sins. You might think that sounds silly, but he has your best interests at heart. There is no human family that becomes perfect from a picture. The only family that becomes perfect is one that experiences a father's love and forgiveness. So if you're hoping as a child, maybe at some point a snapshot can be taken and God will say, yes, right then and there, that's all we need. Let's just keep that picture forever. You're never going to find it. The only way you're going to be perfect as his child is to become so through the love and the forgiveness of your Heavenly Father. Don't focus on being a biblical child, quote unquote. Focus on being a forgiven, loved child who's become perfect through the gift of a Savior. And if you're ready to receive that, it doesn't matter what anyone says about you, what anyone thinks about you. All that matters is what your God says about you. This is my beloved son or daughter in whom I'm well pleased. You want him to say that about you? Come, and he will as we stand and sing.